The following is a CUNY TV special presentation.
Brooklyn is just not one of the 5 boroughs of New York, and today Brooklyn has become a household name. I saw Marty Markowitz come in here this morning. So Marty, you obviously had a tremendous amount to do with that, and the new Borough President has taken that baton and definitely run with it. It's a brand that stands on its own. In the last several decades, Brooklyn has undergone probably one of the most exciting changes for an urban area. Incubators, cultural institutions that we just talked about, major entertainment venues, sports arenas, and downtown has been established as a major business hub, and so many things that are going on. And we're very excited this morning to have the Borough President of Brooklyn here to talk about all these things that are happening and his vision for the future of Brooklyn. Eric is born in Brownsville, Brooklyn. He's worked his way through the New York City public school system. He worked while he was in school, graduated from the Police Academy in 1984 as the highest ranking student in that class. Eric spent 22 years as a police officer and retired as a captain. He served 2 terms in the New York State Senate before becoming Brooklyn Borough President. Throughout the years, Eric has worked on causes important to him and his constituents and his borough, including criminal justice, public safety, quality of life concerns, gun control, all of which are important ABNY issues and things that we've been talking about for many decades. And he has taken these causes home to his borough to build upon the great momentum of Brooklyn. Eric, thank you for years of service and advocacy, and we look forward to hearing your perspective on all these critical issues. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming Borough President Eric Adams.
Thank you for your gracious applause. But I say all over Brooklyn, all over the city, you do not clap for me, I clap for you. I am still the officer on the beat answering 911 calls for service and duties. It has not changed. This is an important city, an important moment for all New Yorkers as well as Brooklynites. And one thing that I've learned throughout my years in public service, it's important to be a person who served the public and not self-serving. And that's my goal, and that's my commitment. And one thing I learned in the police department is to use my observatory skills to observe when things are wrong and move towards correcting conditions. And that's what I'm here to do today to talk about. How do we correct some of the conditions? It doesn't make me the smartest person in the room. You know my saying, if I'm the smartest person in the room, we're all in trouble. It merely means that I've had a skill from patrolling the streets of the city of New York, and it's that view and observation that I want to share. And I want to thank Bill Rutan and his family. Since 1971, his dad, moving forward with the Association for a Better New York. And notice that name, Association for a Better New York. It is not Association for New York. It's Association for a Better New York. New York must always continue to evolve and grow. We must always state, how do we become better at what we do? Good is the enemy of great. New York is a great place, and we must continue to do that, and we're greater because we have a Bill Rutan and his family, what they've done for so many years. I want to just briefly move back. I always share with folks that, I believe in the Mike Tyson theory of speaking. It should not take you 12 rounds what you can do in 1. So I'm going to hit it and quit it. First, let's talk about public safety. Safe communities make good business sense. They created space for our economy to thrive, for people to gain upward mobility, and for important services to be delivered. We are all concerned about the increase in some of the criminal actions that's taking place, particularly gun violence. But let's not get it twisted. New York City is still a safe place to live and grow and raise healthy children and families. What I'm calling for is a reexamination of how do we police in New York City. There are two forms of policing in the city. One is where a police officer who's in a radio motor patrol, he's normally a busy officer who's responding to calls of service. And then the other officer is the beat cop. He stands on the corner for the most part, and he can go the entire day without responding to any calls for service. We have to better utilize that time. And what I'm asking the mayor and the police commissioner to do, I had a great conversation with Mayor de Blasio, how do we reframe and recharge that officer? Instead of spending the 8 hours waiting for something to happen, we need to be proactive. Our challenge in New York is not a crime problem, it's a public relation problem. We have a disconnect between the communities that police officers are serving and the actual men and women who are on patrol. They must know each other. I am asking the police department to do pilot projects in several parts of the borough, one precinct per borough, where our officers take a new role. Instead of waiting for something to happen, go out and interact with the public. We have a municipal ID program. Hand out information about that program. We're trying to push our pre-K program for young people to start school earlier in their careers. Talk about to parents who you see have children. Interact with the public. And let's try something that's different. How about saying good morning to each other? If the only time our police officers interact with the public is when you're telling the public what they can't do or giving them a summons or tell them what you can't stand, you begin to depict your police department as the bearer of bad news instead of the bearer of good news. When police and community interact in a friendly way, in a friendly manner, it creates an environment that that person that you treated kindly and politely is the person who's going to give you the tip of who's carrying a gun, who's selling drugs, who's doing something that's inappropriate. Not only should the police learn the manners of being kind, but the public must learn the manners of interacting kindly with police officers. They are family members just the same. It's a mutual love affair, and we need each other. Bad guys talk to each other all the time. Now it's time for good guys to talk to each other just the same way. You could clap to that. Now, I don't want to get it twisted. The role of the police officer will continue to be public safety. Because he or she will be proactive, it doesn't mean we would take away the police officer role to ensure that public safety is of paramount importance. We have to diversify our department. Our department must be a department that's reflective of the people of the city of New York. And here's how we can do it. And it's an easy task, a quick fix. I believe in this concept of minor league law enforcement and the pro league of law enforcement. New York City currently has some of the greatest men and women that are performing in the minor leagues of law enforcement. Who are they? Hospital police, traffic enforcement agents, school safety agents, HAC, law enforcement personnel. They are all in the minor league of law enforcement. We must find ways to bring them up to the major leagues of law enforcement. My conversation with the police department and the leaders in the department is to talk about how do we remove the barrier of the 2-year college requirement for those who are in the minor leagues. Allow them to use their years of experience. It could be 2 years, 5 years, whatever the number of time, to move up to the next level of policing. What happens if we do that? When you look at the numbers of those who are in that minor league department that I'm talking about, the numbers are astonishing. If we take just the HAC peace officers, 57% of them are African American, 31% of them are Hispanics, 8% are white, and 4% are Asian. Something else they have all in common. You know what? They all live in New York City. So they become taxpayers. We diversify the department, and at the same time, we're using job experience as an opportunity to substitute for education, and they are all taxpayers, unlike our existing force, where 50% of the men and women who are part of the department, close to 50%, they live outside the city of New York. What's wrong with that? Police officers are one of the few occupations where you are on duty 24 hours. We are paying for 8 hours of service, and we're spending 16 hours in another community to make it safe. That does not make sense. We are incurring a heavy level of overtime. New York City is on pace to incur $550 million in uniform personnel overtime costs, about 26% more than originally allocated in the fiscal year 15 budget. And any of you in this room who are businessmen, I'm sure you know one of the worst things you could come in contact with is unattended expenses. Let's hire those 1,000 cops. We need them. There's calls for new police officers to come into the agency. Those 1,000 cops will be boots on the ground. We're still a terrorist threat. The further we move from 9/11, the more comfortable we become. There's a reason they call those sick minds who want to hurt our country sleeper cells. They want us to fall asleep. They're still out there. They're still among us. And if we have additional cops to handle the terrorist threat, we could have the personnel we need to be on the ground to deal with real issues that we're dealing with. Summons reform. You heard about it. These summonses and how we should move away from summonses. That is not my position. I am a firm believer in broken window policing. You do not fix a window just to turn around and re-break it. It makes no sense. But what we can't do, we can't continue to allow petty infractions turn into deterrents in the years to come. If an 18-year-old child receives a summons for riding a bike on the sidewalk or open container of alcohol or public urination, that should not become an impediment for him when he goes to American Express or Smith Barney or some other institution to be employed when he's 21. If he receives a summons and pays for that summons, then there is no criminal record that he will have because of that. But if he receives a summons and put it in his back pocket, like I did when I was a young child and wanted to become a police officer, if he forgets about it or don't tell his parents, and a police officer comes to his school or comes to his home and arrests him for that summons, he now has a permanent police record. And we cannot allow countless number of young people to have permanent police records. Look at these numbers. The New York State Office of Court Administration states that roughly 700,000 of the 1 million summonses from January 2011 to 2014 were low-level offenses, those riding their bikes on the sidewalk, open container. Of those, approximately 140,000 resulted in outstanding warrants. 140,000 normally good, law-abiding citizens that made an error. All of us know that we forgot to pay a bill one day. All of us know that we forgot to do some form of payment. It should not turn into incarceration. And I think it's also important that we look at the transparency in our police departments. We've learned a lot from what happened in Carolina. We learned a lot from what happened in Staten Island. How do we learn from that and its transparency? Cameras are a major part of how that transparency can take place. And it's more than just the body cameras. Technology allows us to place cameras on guns and cameras on other items. If we utilize camera technology and modern-day technology, it is not about just catching the police officer when he does something wrong. It's about getting a true account. And studies have shown over 90% of the time when an officer is wearing a camera or his actions is caught with technology, he has been shown to do the right thing. And not only could that film or what took place can be used to determine what happened, but it also could be used for training purposes. We must find safe spaces for our youth before they turn into public crisis. The goal is to address the root causes of all the crimes and all the incidents that are impacting our young people. It makes good business sense to not have our young people corralled in our business districts because they have no place to go. Do we have to build new structures? We don't have to build new structures to do that. We have it already. Our public school systems. We need to utilize these buildings more. We have 1,454 schools in our city. 441 of those schools are in the borough of Brooklyn. Too often, after the school hour, the buildings are closed. Our children are not allowed access to these great structures. We have to allow our children to utilize these buildings. We don't have the revenue to build new recreational centers, and we shouldn't have to. School buildings are extensions of community resources. They are not DOE property. They are the property of the people of the city of New York, and they must be used accordingly whenever we need to use them. Look what happened in East New York with the Soul Tigers. Soul Tigers were a marching band. If a young person has the warm metal of a horn in his or her hand, he would not have the cold steel of a gun in his hand. And when the Soul Tigers in East New York, Brooklyn, one of the highest crime levels in our city, Soul Tigers had a space in the school building where they were taking children off the street and placing them in safe spaces. And they were removed from the building, charge higher fees. All agencies must be on the same playbook. Our children come first, and they must have safe space in order to do and develop their full personhood. And that must happen. And the DOE, we must move forward to open the school buildings to our young people and our children. So I propose to either waive the fee for nonprofits and community-based organizations, or utilize a fund in the Department of Youth and Community Development to offset costs. No matter how we do it, the goal is to get it done. My capital budget calls for $1.2 million in funding for 4 community learning schools across Brooklyn. Great wraparound services, giving our young people and families the services they need. And here's what's interesting that I understand. Schools are the only entities in our community that everyone is comfortable in entering. No matter if English is your second language, that is a welcome mat, and it must become the focal point of our community development. And what the UFT is doing is commendable, of having these wraparound services from eyeglasses to medical care and other developmental issues to help young people continue to develop in families. Computer skills are not an option in the job market of 2015, so computer science cannot be an option in the education curriculum of 2015. In fact, I go a step further and say that we should be offering coding programs at every school. The glaring common denominator of those who occupy our jails upstate is the lack of education. It's not ethnicity. If you don't have education, you are on a pathway to incarceration, and we cannot continue to allow that to happen. That's why Brooklyn supports the Pipeline Initiative. The pipeline approach has been championed by educated leaders, and I'm so happy to be teamed up. I saw him walked in. I'm glad he's here. Dr. Rudy Crew from Medgar Evers College. I believe I saw him walked in. We are blessed to have Dr. Rudy Crew here with his experience as the former chancellor, and his premature departure from the city. It's good to have you back, and all the energy that you bring to this conversation. Pipeline connects the learning of students in partnering elementary, middle, and high schools as well as colleges. For example, it shows them firsthand what it means to be college ready by providing early college courses in high school. Look at what we found. Out of the 96 schools that Dr. Crew has put together as his cohort of schools, we found that young people in elementary school who took STEAM or STEM learning wanted to go to a middle school in their community to continue that STEAM or STEM learning. And when they looked at the middle schools in their community, there was nothing there. And if you were in middle school and you wanted to find a high school, there was nothing there. So it's great to talk about STEM and STEAM, but if the STEAM is leaving the pipeline, then all you have is a broken pipe in a broken system. Let's seal the pipeline and make sure our children in elementary school can find a school in the middle school and the high school and have a place in college. Even if they don't go to Medgar Evers College or one of our great CUNY colleges, they need to know that at the end of the line that they're prepared to go to college. And as it stands now, there's a crack in that pipe and the steam is slipping through, and that is not acceptable, and Dr. Crew understands that. And instead of saying we don't want you because you're not prepared for college, Dr. Crew is saying what do we have to do to make you prepared for college? And Dr. Crew, we thank you for that. If we prepare a student to sit in the classroom, we won't be preparing them to sit in a jail cell. And Pipeline can address many of these issues that we're facing in our public school system. And I'm putting my money where my mouth is. 75% of my education dollars this year in my capital budget is going to fit our schools on some of the items they need to continue this STEAM initiative. I'm looking to identify and nurture schools that support this pipeline concept, and I want to be a partner with them in the borough of Brooklyn. Computer skills are not an option in the job market of 2015, so computer science cannot be optional in the educational curriculum of 2015. The law should reflect this, and I'm going to speak to my colleagues in Albany, and it's time to retrofit our educational law to fit the needs of our business community today. I am a believer of textbook-free classrooms. We cannot continue to allow the book industry to hold us hostage. Our children don't need to carry around stacks of books when you can get readily accessible material on an iPad, and we need to introduce that into our school buildings. We live in a real-time universe. Little Johnny should not be reading that Bush is still the president. Obama is the president now, and it should be reflected and upgraded as often as possible. We believe that an analysis of the state education law says that schools can use their textbook funding for tablets with digital learning platforms right now, platforms that have material from publishers that is up to date, real-time universe to get real-time solutions. And that is the goal we want to do in Brooklyn and have Brooklyn lead the way. And after we do an analysis, we're going to recommend to the DOE to allow other schools to embark upon this initiative. In my capital budget, I'm allocating to ensuring that we move towards affordable housing and affordable units. 421A, as it stands, cannot continue to move in a direction. Cuomo got it wrong. We need a new model. And that new model must ensure local involvement. And having an apprenticeship program is not the answer. Employment is the answer. We can't continue to see Brooklyn grow and the people in the community seeing their lives shrink. They must be part of the employment. I want my young people to be able to be the builders of their community. And know why it makes good sense? Because they live in the community. Their tax dollars will stay in the community. It's important to have them part of the initiative. We need a new version of 421A. But we should be comfortable and aggressive in moving towards improving the community where countless numbers of New Yorkers are living and attempting to grow. And I think we need to look at the idea of grandparent housing. Look at the idea of middle-class housing. Middle-class people stabilize communities. Our teachers, our firefighters, our accountants should have a place to come and live and grow. And it's imperative that we continue to move to build middle-class housing in the borough of Brooklyn and throughout this entire city. I stand at the foot of the Brooklyn Bridge and call for all industries to come to Brooklyn. New York is the empire state. We have to continue building empires. And if other people don't realize that, we realize that in Brooklyn. We want new ideas to come to Brooklyn, Marty Markowitz understood that, and we need to commend him, and we are always thankful for what he has done for the Borough of Brooklyn. He did not allow others to tell him it could not be done. And so we are fortunate in Brooklyn because there are great partnerships. Carlos and the Brooklyn Chamber of Commerce has done an awesome job of continuing to encourage people as delegations go to China and other parts of the globe to attract people to come to the Borough of Brooklyn. The partnership is unbelievable. We want to tap into those 56 million tourists that come to New York City, $60 billion in revenue. There's no better place to go and understand the beauty of diversity and the beauty of enjoying the city than the Borough of Brooklyn. We want to ensure all of our businesses are aware that they must be technology ready. The new travel guide is the smartphone. If you're not on Google, you don't exist. And we must encourage our small businesses to understand that as we move forward to tourism. But there's other things we need to do. We need to ensure that government stop getting in the way of business. We have no business being in your business. The reality of taxation through citation must end. We saw what was done with our restaurants and other areas, where now we should commend the mayor for what he has done to allow proactive inspections to let those businesses know where the difficulties are. We have to expand that to other agencies like the Department of Building. It should not take days to get those items approved so we can continue to build. In order for business to move forward, government must be on the same playbook and understand we're here to help. The game is not I got you. The game is I got your back. I'm going to make sure that you have what you need to continue to grow and deal with the unemployment that we are facing in the Borough of Brooklyn. And so when you take a good look at where we are and what we're doing and where we can go, I'm at a good place and I'm at a happy place. I think that Brooklyn is going to lead the way. And I want to share this with you, and I say it often as I move around the borough. ABNY, I spent 22 years of my life wearing a bulletproof vest protecting the children and families of the city. I love the city. Every part of me I have given you. And I'm going to continue to do that as the Borough President. And the blue uniform may have changed and it's a blue suit now, but the commitment is the same. When you dedicated your life to making sure that your children can grow and your commitment to this city, you're not going to change it no matter what you do and no matter what occupation you may have. I want Jordan to come home from college, and I want him to come and be a part of this city and have a place that he can learn and grow. And I don't want him to live inside some small little corner. I want him to understand and appreciate the beauty of diversity. 47% of Brooklynites speak a language other than English at home. I want him to know all those different cultures and groups. That's what makes us great as a city. One of the greatest Brooklynites is the founder of Snapple, and I borrow from him all the time. Brooklyn is great, and our brand is great because we are made of the best stuff on earth as Brooklynites. Thank you very much.